We grew up as children of immigrants, but also normalized that too.
We are who we are because of our parents.
Grandfather Marksman Watson, grown up in Jamaica. Why did they move to Painesville, cold, small Ohio?
He went to Panama to help to build the Panama Canal, and he went to Cuba.
A specific officer was very influential in bringing them to the United States.
So they came in the late 40s and early 50s.
Was offered a job overseas, making 10 times what he was making.
Wow.
But that means he would have had to leave his children.
Meeting Uncle Dunbar was such a thrill because here was someone who looked like Dad, sounded like Dad, but was even nicer than Dad. They were serious cyclists. Before there was Lance Armstrong, there was Lloyd Watson and Greg Dunbar Watson.
My aunt becoming the first African American hired at Fason, the first an election clerk. We were blessed to have giants within the movement. Meetings were held in our home. Protest rallies were planned in our basement.
My takeaway on Jamaican Journey is that it ultimately was successful largely because of the women that the boys married.
If those before me were able to overcome and win and love, then we can. And how's everyone feeling?
Good.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Lisa said, I'm talking to Aunt Rose.
Thank you guys for joining us and doing this with us. Really appreciate that. I wanted to, in this episode, to talk a little bit about our fathers. Obviously, Uncle Dunbar, your father, was our dad's big brother, eldest brother. He was second of 6 full brothers and sisters, and also had another 5 or 6 half brothers and sisters as well. Born in Jamaica in the 1920s and 30s. And I like to say 3 brothers, 2 countries, 1 story. But I wanted people maybe to get a little bit of background because they've seen Dad and they've heard us talk about Uncle Dunbar and Uncle Lloyd. And I'm saying 3 brothers, but it really was 3 sisters and 3 brothers, right? And so
don't forget about the ladies.
Carmela.
Gloria and Aunt Cynthia, also known as Lytton.
You remember grandfather? Do you actually remember?
You do?
Our grandfather?
Oh, wow.
So
I can remember grandfather living at our home at 245 Jefferson Street.
In Ohio, in Painesville,
Ohio.
Wow.
I can see him sitting in the chair.
Is this the 1960s or the 1970s when he's living with you?
It would be the late 60s, early 70s.
Okay.
Yes.
And grandfather Marksman Watson, who had grown up in Jamaica.
Yes.
And then had moved. Why did they move to Painesville, Ohio, a little small town? Why were these Jamaicans who like hot weather? Why were they in cold, small Ohio?
Well, he went to Panama first, right? And he went to Cuba. He went to Panama to help to build the Panama Canal. And then he went to Cuba, right? And
that's actually he got the name Carlos, right?
Yes.
For Dad. And now Carlos has it, and now our little Carlito has it,
right?
Yeah.
But then Painesville, I don't know. Did we know someone there? Did they know?
It was told, to our family, to the children, that it all started by actually military being in Jamaica. Dad and Uncle, they rode bikes. So like professional bike riders. But
your dad and Uncle Lloyd were especially good, I think. They were serious cyclists. Before there was Lance Armstrong, there was Lloyd Watson and Dunbar Watson. Greg Dunbar Watson. Yes.
So they were working. It's my understanding that military, wherever they needed to be in that area, wherever they found lodging, whether it was your home, your store, whatever, and made a camp there. So my dad had helped move the stuff, and they were so impressed with the work ethic of just the Watson sons that a specific officer in the service talked with grandfather And this particular gentleman actually owned a business right outside of Painesville. But he was very influential into bringing them, getting them to the United States.
Okay. And so they came in the late 40s and early 50s.
In the 50s.
They came in the 50s. And
all of them came at the same time? Because like Dad came at 17.
Correct. So you have to remember Uncle Carlos, my dad was the second child born, but the oldest son born. So of course you send some to make
Came
the
in
way.
waves,
Yeah, for the
And
others.
then you want to send for the other ones, especially when you have younger
Right.
ones. You want to make sure everything is set up for them to come because they're leaving a country that they've known.
Right.
And it sounded like, if I heard right, that Ohio was where people went first, but also eventually New York. Because Aunt Carmela was there, and at some point Dad was living with her as well in Brooklyn, and then I guess California, because Uncle Lloyd, I don't know whether he went there for...
Uncle Lloyd went to California
For
because
medical
of medical school.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if you all know, my father was in medical school first.
Oh.
Yes. My father actually stopped going to medical school so he could help fund Uncle Lloyd's medical school.
Wow.
I know you weren't there, but Ren and Carol and Lisa, I know you know and remember when Uncle Lloyd did his speech, he said that I'm indebted to my brother. Not only did he give me his car so I could drive, but he actually said, you know what, Lloyd, you do it. I'm going to work and help put you through school.
Wow.
You do it.
Wow, what a level of kindness and generosity. And then your dad ended up working in the Petro Labs for 40 years plus, right?
Chemical analyst.
Chemical analyst. Do you think he liked his life here in Texas and in, originally in Ohio, but as you remember it, did he enjoy his life here?
I think he did. He grew too.
You know why we came to Texas.
No, why did you go?
Oh.
Mommy, of course, had multiple sclerosis.
Right.
So
This was the
during that
70s.
area, correct. It was not a lot of information. My mother was misdiagnosed. She began getting sick after she had me. And so...
And you were the third of five.
Correct. But my mother's doctor in Ohio at Euclid suggested that my dad bring my mother to the University of Texas Medical Branch because it was a doctor here that had done extensive research on multiple sclerosis. So my father came to Texas, found a job, and moved us here so my mother could get better care.
Right.
But he had met your mom in Painesville?
In Painesville. He met my mother.
She was from Painesville herself, right?
Kosciuszko, Mississippi.
From Mississippi?
Kosciuszko, Mississippi. Yeah.
So just
I
like
don't think I knew
grandma.
that.
Our grandma on the mom's side was
Like,
from
no, I didn't know that.
Mississippi.
And they moved to Ohio.
And so they meet in Painesville and fall in love right away. Do you guys know?
My father said he did. Took
The
a
way it
little
should
more
be.
convincing with my mother. He actually met my mother when she was on her walk to the library. She was in college.
Okay. Oh, so even though we
Annie and
call you
Pearl.
Michelle,
Yes.
your given name is Annie,
Yes.
and that's after mom. Wow. Okay. And what did they call your mom? They called her?
Right. My mother's middle name, Pearl.
Right.
And her being so small, her family called her Bit.
Wait, but this is good because I feel like I'm learning
I know.
because I didn't really get to spend a lot of time with your mom. So I feel like I didn't get to know her in the way that you got to know my mom.
Yeah.
I got to know your dad,
Yes.
but I didn't really get to know your mom in the same way because your mom passed on
in 1978, November 11th, 1978.
Oh wow! So I was.
And how old were you at that time?
I was 8.
And do you remember her? Well, you do. Okay, okay. And Marcus was how old?
Marcus was 6.
Wow, so young ones. Okay.
The cool thing about having mom having a twin, Catherine, is even though mom passed away, it was still like I still got to see her growing up because
that's really.
And were they identical twins?
Yes, Dad always took us back to Ohio. It's like I was still seeing her.
Wow.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Yeah. But what was she like?
She was sweet, gentle, beautiful, loving. Is unfortunately she got sick after she had me. When did she get diagnosed? When did she become?
She was officially diagnosed after she had Marcus.
Okay.
She started showing signs after she had me. And then when after she had Lisa, as Lisa stated, is when the doctor said, I believe we've been treating you for years, basically, for something different. And then that's when they looked at other perspectives and finally diagnosed her with multiple sclerosis.
And so what was your dad like after she passed? Because even though I never really knew her, I could feel that he loved her deeply and fully. And so to love someone that deeply and fully, and then to still have 5 kids that you're responsible for, some of whom are under the age of 10, so are really young. What was he like after she passed?
He was awesome. You know, my mom's twin tried to take us. She offered to raise us, but he said no. He'll keep us together and raise us. We all know he did a awesome job.
Yeah. So much love and attention that he brought to it. Did he ever share with you guys the pain of that time?
I didn't have any because, being so young, I didn't have the awareness of it at that time.
We could definitely, the older kids, we could see it.
Because you were in junior high.
Incorrect.
And Donna was in
high school. Danny was first year in college.
College. Wow. Okay, so it went from kids in first grade to kids in college. Right. So they had a real range, yeah. And he was still working full time.
Still working. When mom was sick, Dad would work a 12-hour shift, go straight to the hospital, stay with mom, go back to work, repeat the cycle.
Wow.
And so then who would raise the kids during that time? Who was with you guys?
Us. Okay. We took care of each other. Responsibility, like I said, Danny was in college after mom died. Then it was me and Donna, Marcus and Lisa. We divided it. You get one, I get one. Then, Donna grows up and, moves out. Then it was the 3 of us.
And Uncle Dunbar, say more about him and about his journey. He not only was working as a chemical analyst, but it felt like he got very involved in the community. It felt like he was very involved in politics and mentoring in the church. Am I putting stuff on him that's not true, or was that?
No, that's correct.
Absolutely.
That and more. Yeah. And it started in Painesville with the NAACP. We were blessed to have giants within the movement. At the time, we didn't realize who they were. Our home was open. Meetings were held in our home. Protest rallies were planned in our basement. My father was very influential in my aunt, which was my mother's twin sister, becoming the first African-American hired at FASON. She was the first African-American election clerk in Painesville, Ohio. So the movement started there, but it continued when we moved to Texas. So my father always believed in church, school, and community. And he instilled that into each of us. It's your reasonable service. He used to say, you give your service unto the Lord for your community, That's the rent you pay to be part of the community. So he stressed those things to us. So you found us working in church. You found us working in the community. My father was a man of great faith and great integrity.
Absolutely.
He was a selfless man that constantly gave to others, that never looked for any recognition or credit. He did what he knew as a Christian he should do without any hesitation or without waiting for anyone's approval.
I told you, I said in another conversation we had that meeting Uncle Dunbar for the first time that I remembered was such a thrill, because here was someone who looked like Dad, sounded like Dad, but was even nicer than Dad, and loved sports and would load me up with all the good food. But it was very interesting watching the different siblings and their different paths, because Dad, who was fifth of six, so Uncle Dunbar was the oldest, as you said, started medical school, went into the Army, became a chemical analyst, married, had 5 kids. Uncle Lloyd also served in the military, went to medical school, married several times, ultimately had 4 or 5 kids, 3 of whom he had at once together in one family, but also had beautiful Brittany and others. Yes, and raised his grandchildren as well. Angel, after she passed away early. But that was interesting, because that was a very different life, the life of a doctor. That was the first time, I was in kind of a wealthy African-American home where and this was the 70s, and he had kind of a house on a hill. And you know what I mean? It was kind of a sprawling house, and it was lots of swimming as a TV show, you say swimming pool movie stars, right? Beverly and so that was a different snapshot. And Dad, in our case, had also stopped out of school, and had also, I think, along with Uncle Dunbar, went to try and support Uncle Lloyd a little bit. And then when he met Mom, or re-met Mom in the 60s, Mom encouraged him to go back to school and finish his college degree, and ultimately, after having been in the military, and go to graduate school, and ended up working as a teacher and social worker for much of his career. It was interesting to see those 3 boys, and the youngest one, Carlos, our dad, in Florida, the oldest of the boys, Uncle Dunbar, in Texas, with 5 kids, so 4 kids and then 5 kids, and then Uncle Lloyd, for a lot of our growing up, had 3 kids he was living with, and was in California. And so it just felt like 3 very different, but I felt like their temperaments were very different. Like, I felt like Uncle Dunbar was simultaneously selfless and easy, but also very strong. I felt like he was a lion in his strength.
Absolutely.
And I felt like you couldn't mistake his kindness for weakness, because I felt very deeply about justice, and I felt about fairness. And so I felt like that was there. I didn't perceive, but maybe again, I was very young, that Uncle Lloyd, obviously as a doctor, you're trying to heal people and help people get to a better place. But I think about Uncle Dunbar as being more involved in politics and more involved in that kind of community work. And even our dad, I thought, also got involved in that. So just
very
kind of,
much so.
Because Dad actually with the United Nations Association, and just really caring about people and community. So I feel like they shared that trait of community and fighting on for behalf of others.
Right.
Because I remember actually sometimes when growing up, like if Dad saw something, and maybe even in my mind I was little, and I saw they looked sort of scary, and Dad would go and say something. I'm like, no, why are you going to say something? But he was like, young man, you're doing this wrong, you're not doing that wrong, and not being afraid, right?
Yeah, it's so, but again, we've had good examples of people, including your dad, and including my dad, and feeling like, and even when I think about Aunt Carmela and Aunt Gloria, I didn't really know Aunt Cynthia as much, but Aunt Carmela, she had a strength to her, and even in her later years, when she was sick and really challenged by disease of different kinds, she had a real kindness, but also a strength to her that that also, and then Aunt Gloria, I didn't get to spend a lot of time with Aunt Gloria, but my instinct was that Aunt Gloria was strong.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
we did.
Definitely.
We did. And the thing about Aunt Carmela, which is universal to all of us sitting here, moved across state lines. I want to say across the country. It started with you all.
Yeah.
You all know why she left Florida to come stay with us.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I didn't know that.
She left us to go to California after Uncle Lloyd got divorced.
Wow.
Veronica,
Yeah.
Angel.
So she was caretaking.
That's
and
exactly I was about to say.
stabilizing.
The whole caretaker of service. She was a nurse. She was a nurse.
I mean, it's for me, as I think about legacy and I think about our ancestors, I recognize that there is this strength that we get. You don't know everything, but you know that this is, if those before me were able to overcome and win and love, then we can. Because I was the youngest. And so I didn't, in fact, our grandfather died, I think, on the day I was born.
Right.
Right.
So that's why Daddy wasn't able to go
at
to
my delivery.
Right.
And so, you know, the fact that you knew our grandfather, right, and that you had experience with him, I didn't have that, but obviously grew up with sort of stories and lures. And so, you know, I appreciate also hearing a little bit more about family members. Aunt Carmela, she was strict too, though, wasn't she? I think
But she was also a good cook.
Yes.
And she had worked with several famous Hollywood people, so she had either being their private nurse and so
she was one of the first.
Yeah. And so she had good stories, and she had a twinkle in her eye. She liked to kind of I felt like she liked to kind of what do you call that when you wink? Yeah. She had a little bit of a wink. I felt like she was one of the first people I knew who winked, which I really enjoyed that. For you guys growing up, because we've talked about this on the show, did you guys grow up feeling more Jamaican, more Black American, a mix? Because your mom's family is Black American, like our mom, or they're now calling it Foundational American.
Oh, really? No.
Foundational Black American. Have you heard that? No. Or they used to call it homegrown. And then, but you know, you had rice and peas on the other side, right? How did you guys feel? Did you feel one or the other growing up, or both, or mix?
I would say both, because still it was prevalent. My father is Jamaican.
Yeah.
My mother was born in Mississippi. So it was never one or the other. We are who we are because of our parents.
Yeah.
And so we were never pulled one way or the other. We knew our Jamaican heritage. We knew our I like to say our Southern Mississippi heritage as well. My grandmother's sister lived to be 108 years old.
Wow! So did our grandmommy on mommy's side. She was 101.
102.
You know, so much information with us. So we were always taught to know your history, be proud of your history.
Yes.
We are sons and daughters of kings and queens.
Absolutely.
We are a proud people, a strong people,
hardworking,
people that have a very strong work ethic.
Absolutely.
A people that believed in family. A people that no matter what was going on with them, I can remember how devastating we were when my mother passed. But then I could remember one by one my dad's siblings coming through that gate. Not knowing the sacrifices then that Uncle Carlos had to make to leave to get there. You know, now we we bid, we can see, oh, this ticket is too high. At times like that, you didn't have that opportunity. He needed to get to his brother. So I watched at my father's most vulnerable time that I've ever seen him. I watched his siblings hold him up. And not only hold him up, but hold us as children up to reassure us that everything was gonna be okay.
Do you know what your life would have been like if you guys had either stayed in Ohio or if you had lived in California or Florida? Do you guys have a guess as to what you think your life would have been like because sometimes our life is guided by our surroundings, by where we are, right? And you might have lived a very different life if you had grown up in Mississippi. How do you think Texas shaped you guys and shaped your growing up?
Everything's bigger in Texas. You know what, Painesville, where we from, that's a small, just like Mississippi, where our mom's from, small little cities. Like back then, like probably half of the city was related to us. We were relatives.
Our maternal family, that was their home base. My grandfather's siblings, so the Landingham name carried weight.
And Mississippi in the 60s and 70s and 80s, I mean, it's still an interesting place, but even more interesting racially and otherwise there. You probably would have had a very different experience. I often think that, do you think Texas was Uncle Dunbar's sweet spot, or would you have, if you could have chosen a place for him to live, where would you have chosen for him to play out his career?
It probably would have been in Paynesville. My father loved Paynesville.
Did he go back there? He did go back there often.
Oh, we went back every summer. He took us home. Because my mother's parents, my mother's siblings, we had aunts, uncles.
He was
cousins,
intentional. Wow.
There. His sister was right there in Cleveland.
Oh, right.
So I believe that Texas was only an option because of what was going on at the time. Of course, Texas was better. His employment was better.
Yeah, he had really stable employment because he was at the same company for how many years?
Yes, well, he was at Amoco for over 25 years. And then formerly Uniroyal in Ohio. He was there all my life. That's the only job I've ever known my father to have.
Wow. Yeah, I wonder if he would have had that same stability in other places as well too, or whether he probably insisted on that stability given that he had 5 kids and a wife who had health
frankly,
challenges.
what kind of decisions he made. I mean, for example, maybe even for promotions, right? And to continue, or maybe you're sort of saying, okay, if I did this, I might have to travel more or do, so let me keep this mid-level job that I know I can do, and I can do it well, and
I can still be there for my kids and for my family, right? And
so like what becomes first? And when you're a single dad, single parent, right? You have to make sure you're steady there for the kids. So
my father was offered, and you all may or may not remember because the brothers did discuss it. My father was offered a job to go and work and open up. Then it was Pan America Oil overseas.
Oh, wow.
And I'm talking about making probably 10 times what he was making.
Wow.
But that means he would have had to leave his children. And my father was very fervent in his belief, in his responsibility as a father. As Lisa stated earlier, my aunt, because my aunt, as you all know, Rhonda, had a daughter the same age as Lisa. So my grandparents was going to take Marcus. My Aunt Khaki was going to take Lisa. Of course, Danny and Donna were already grown. So my Aunt Jean and my Uncle Junior, which was my mom's baby brother and his wife, they were going to take me.
Wow.
My dad said, if you can't take all of my children and they live under one roof, like brothers and sisters should, then I'll take care of my children and raise my children.
Wow, the choices and the sacrifices that we make. How do you guys think about Uncle Lloyd's journey? Because in some ways, it involved the most financial opportunity. Financially, he had financial, what seemed from the outside, financial independence. But it felt like his marriages struggled, and it felt like as a result, the kids struggled. And so even though in a way there was more financial resources, there wasn't your dad or our mom or that core parenting figure who could provide that kind of, who could provide what frankly might be needed, that money can't always buy. How did you guys think about that, and how did you experience it? Because you were a little bit closer to him, Texas to California, than we were Florida to California. I think we only spent real time with him once, maybe twice, in California.
And that was
Carolyn,
you
when
and
you and I went.
Right.
And then later in life we would go. But growing up, as you said, people didn't travel that much in those days. So the idea of going from Florida to California was like a big deal.
And that's actually what made Uncle Dunbar so huge, right? Because as you said, people didn't travel that much then. But Uncle Dunbar was always coming. He was always coming in, and he'd always bring shelter. It was just like,
Even before then, when you all lived in Michigan, we would load up the station wagon. Dad took us to every one of his siblings' homes.
That's wild.
But how did you guys think about, I mean, did you guys think about Uncle Lloyd's experience and think, because I might think about the three brothers, and not to only limit it to the brothers, but I think about their experiences there.
I think of Uncle Lloyd was the rich brother, and I think of the others as middle class. At some point in time, we had a lot of education, but we were still lower middle class for us, the Watsons, because we didn't have a lot of money.
So Ren, I don't know that I thought about it as you just described it. I mean, obviously when you think just in the abstract, not necessarily the three brothers, that you think sometimes having all the money doesn't necessarily mean that gives you happiness or peace, right? And so, and many times a lack makes you have riches in other ways besides financial. And so we learned the importance of family, of community. I mean, you and I shared a room growing up, and Carolyn and Crystal shared a room. And like that also changes the dynamic and how well you know. And so I don't know how you guys did like growing up too, but like that changes. And so
you're right, Bev, that also marked a slightly different journey. Whereas Dad has 3 grandkids, but has never quite had the same amount of time with them that Uncle Dunbar both made and had with his grandkids, right?
I believe that, like I said, even the brothers, we talked, about Uncle Carlos, and to me, each of them dug a lane and just drove in that lane. But even Uncle Lloyd, in his own right, he set and broke records.
Absolutely.
Even in the medical arena, being an African American.
Opened up his own private practice as well. Absolutely.
But he had to fight to get in to get what the others were getting. It's just
and what's interesting though is it felt like Uncle Lloyd felt very self-assured. And that must not have been easy in the 70s to be a doctor and be a Black doctor and know whether or not you were going to get the respect, the opportunity, whether people were going to undermine you, be they your patients, your bosses, insurance companies, others, and then to set up your own practice and manage your own practice. And he did that for decades.
Well, he was self-assured, and he was also encouraging, because it's funny, I remember when after I graduated from undergrad, and I don't remember what time it was. Maybe it was like you graduated from law school at Stanford. So we all like came out there, and I remember him asking, so what are you doing right now? And like we had been working. He was like, well, you need to go back to school, and you need to do this. Even if you're not in school right now, you can do, take some classes and do this. And I was just like, okay, I got you.
it's the same thing Uncle Carlos would say.
Yes,
So I
that's
think
true.
Yeah.
we all saw them in a different light
Right.
because Uncle Carlos is you'll catch more with honey than vinegar.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
seriously,
Yeah.
because the softer side. Now, they all believed in discipline, obeying, teaching principles,
Yes.
teaching values.
Yes.
They all believed in that.
Yes.
But they all had a different philosophy about certain things.
Yes.
You were going to be corrected if you were wrong. Uncle Carlos always corrected in love.
Yes.
You know, he's the sweet. That's why he always has a saying, like, you know,
Yes.
you would with vinegar. You know, and just like Uncle Lloyd, you know, very strict.
Yeah.
Even, you know, we witnessed him, you know, with the kids, with Veronica and Leo and Angel. And it's funny how we see our parents a certain way, but then our cousins see them in a different way.
Absolutely.
Well, I ended up having an interesting conversation with Uncle Lloyd after I think he had a heart attack or a couple of heart attacks. And he said, I feel like I've worked too much and I wish I had spent more time with family. And I remember it felt a little, I didn't know what to make of it. He went through kind of a life moment, a life inflection point. But yeah, thinking about those brothers and those sisters coming from a small island in the 1950s, pre-civil rights movement, and coming here and trying to figure out how to make their way. And, you know, Aunt Gloria with how many kids?
Aunt Gloria had Ted, Madge, Steve, Dennis.
Dennis with 4 kids. Aunt Carmela, who didn't birth her own kids, but
she had her nieces and her nephews.
But had nieces and nephews that she loved, and she would. I'm smiling now because I got a number of notes over the years from people who would say, "Are you the nephew she used to call Randi?"
She talked about all her nieces and nephews. Everywhere she went. Carolyn can really remember, even at the celebration of life, we were at the repast, and it's like they knew who each of us was without us even saying hi. They just knew.
They just knew.
Because Aunt Carmela doted on us.
She did.
So much.
She did.
So
and
much.
Then Aunt Cynthia also passed. That's interesting that 2 women who were central to our lives, your mom and Aunt Cynthia, the youngest of the 6 full siblings, both passed in the 70s, right?
Yes.
And both passed with young kids, because Aunt Cynthia had
3
children at home in Ohio.
Gary and Heidi.
Right. She had stayed in Ohio.
Yes.
And had 3 kids, and that's she had
diabetes.
breast cancer. Yeah, but it's interesting thinking about these, not just the 3 brothers, but these 6 siblings, 2 who were primarily in California, Aunt Carmela and Uncle Lloyd, one of whom was in Texas, 2 of whom stayed in Ohio, Aunt Gloria and Aunt Cynthia.
Did they all marry
And then
Americans?
Florida. And anyone who married an American. Did Uncle Lloyd ever marry a Jamaican or no?
I don't think so,
Okay.
Everyone married.
And so in so many ways, I mean, so we grew up first gen.
Married a Black American.
Everyone did.
Yeah.
We grew up as a child of an immigrant, children of immigrants. But also normalize that too, right? So it's a way you can understand and have empathy, because it must be a lot striking out and like creating on your own, right? And with not the network or the resources, but creating it. So in some ways, that innovation, that immigrant striving that you're saying, I think about Dad, and it sounds like even from Uncle Lloyd and Uncle Dunbar, is this ability to sort of to think outside the box and be innovative. I love saying we are the children of mom and dad. Mom is someone, she thought big, but she was an executor. She would get things done. But dad would push to dream and think bigger. And so I think that was a nice combination of both of them to do that. So did you see some of that in your dad?
I think they all married spouses that I would like to say complimented them. And it gave them another angle to look at and to merge and to grow, to expand. That's my thought when I think about my aunts and uncles and I think about their spouses. You readily see that. You readily see that.
As we wrap up, let's each go and give one last thought because I still want to get to our other conversation. Lisa, when you think about this journey that our parents went on, what's your biggest takeaway when you think about?
When I think about their Jamaican journey, I think that everyone has a foundation, and I believe Jamaica propelled them for their American journey. And I also believe that their journey would not have been the same if they did not come through Jamaica.
Yeah, and we wouldn't be the same. Bev, what's your takeaway when you think about the Jamaican journey?
I actually am struck with some of the similarities that I actually just recognized today, just even on both sides, that the depth of the community and the relationship and the giving back to the community that these brothers and that our family shared, but we shared both with the Watson side and the Thomas side, right? Because I see that too. And the legacy that we have, which is, I always again think about our ancestors and sort of that cloud of witnesses that we stand on their shoulders and they stand beside us, in front of us. And so it gives me, and even when you talked about grandfather, who again died when I was born, and yet that strength that he had, I feel like, okay, I get it. I get it why we are the Watsons, stronger together. It's not by accident. It's not by accident.
Carol, what about you? What's when you think about the Jamaican journey?
Again, I think what Bev said in terms of legacy is what stands out to me most. I think that we were people born, and that's funny, now I'm thinking the Jamaican legacy, we were born in another country and like kind of came here, but you know, it was a marriage between two, and I think the I don't know, brain fart, actually. Okay.
I was about to take the Lisa hit again. Lisa, should I come back to you? What do you think?
Interesting fact. Did you all know, regarding that, my dad told me, I'm sure I know you're aware, in Jamaica, our grandfather was a successful businessman. I don't recall what the business was. Businessman, so.
Successful, respected, married.
Yes.
Entrepreneur.
Legacy.
And so that piece too, that is in our family. And
they had the market, they had the store, he owned property.
What's your takeaway on this Jamaican journey, Rand?
My takeaway on Jamaican journey is that it ultimately was successful largely because of the women that the boys married. And because I think it could have been very different if they hadn't met your mom, or if they hadn't met my mom or others. I think that was important. I think they stayed together, the six and even the half siblings stayed together, and I'm sure that added some strength and some happiness and some guidance to their life. They really,
right, because their mother also died young.
Yeah, so I think that made a difference there. And I take an encouragement to as you said, be innovative, to be strong, advocate for the right thing from that heritage. Like I feel like that's not that it only could come from that, but I feel like I clearly take that from that. And I'd like to go back. I haven't visited Jamaica in over a decade.
Oh wow,
maybe longer.
Wow.
Okay, well, we're gonna leave it there only because.
Yes, leave it there. But was there a presentation that you were gonna do?
Yes. What have you here?
What you got?
What you got? What you got?
So as we all know, back in May of 2019, the patriarch, Dunbar T. Watson, went home to be with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And he served as the patriarch, and I may be a little biased because that was my dad. I believed he served as the patriarch very well.
Yes,
he did.
For our Watson lineage. So as custom is, when one patriarch leaves the scene and a new one comes on the scene that embodies those same values, those same principles, we always present something of significance to him. So this was made for Uncle Carlos, the family patriarch, on June the 1st, 2019.
Wow.
You all left and we weren't able to present it to him, but on today, I present it to his children,
Praise
Carlos
God.
Jr.,
Yes.
to Carolyn, and to baby girl Beverly, and to Crystal in her absence.
Yes.
So you all take this and present this on behalf of all the Watson lineage,
Yes.
on behalf of Marksman James' children's children,
Wow.
Come on now.
to our beloved uncle.
Yay. Praise God. Thank you,
our last
Michelle.
Beautiful. Thank you,
Yay.
Michelle.
Thank
No,
you.
Vic Carlito came and said,
Yeah.
And this is heavy and of significance. Daddy will love this. He just, at 91 years, I think having the vision and the strength that continue on this journey. That's not always easy. Yeah. Particularly with some of the health challenges. But
15 more years. I told him 15. He said
Yes, you
14.
did.
I told him we'll meet in the middle, 14 and a half. So this is good. So he can play this out for a while. That's good.
I love this. Thank you.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And remind him what blue represents.
Yeah.
They
Royal.
always chose blue.
This is beautiful.
Wow.
Family patriarch. Wow.
Yeah.
Can I use this box?
He really will like that. Thank you
Wow.
guys very much for that, Lisa. Thank you
Carlos
very much for
Watson,
that,
family
Michelle.
patriarch, June
That is
1st,
very.
2019.
That's going to be a beautiful thing. We're going to have to share that and go. Thank you guys for joining us again. Carolyn, thank you again for the brilliant idea of taking the show on the road, even though I know you had selfish reasons. you wanted to be with Shelton. You wanted to celebrate with him. And I hope you'll talk back to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We want to hear from you. This is really about a community platform.
And what's your immigration story? How do you think it's made you different, right? To have either one or both parents from a different place.
And will you prompt an immigration story? You know, one of our other episodes is should we move overseas? And should we start our own immigrant story? Okay, I hope you're loving the Watsons. And to say it now with the larger crew.
3, 2,
1.